Welcome back to Magic Hour Podcast. Taylor Page here.
And this is Claire. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone.
The October listener questions. It's so interesting being on season 2 now because it's like, wow, how has it already been a year since last October listener questions?
I know. It's so crazy. The year just flies.
It really does. And since we're moving into quote unquote spooky season, I want to, before we get into the book rec, I want to just give a heads up because this is the season where all eyes are on like mediumship and witches and all of the things that is our way of life year round is like in the spotlight right now. And this is a time where there will be a lot of misinformation about spirit, a lot of misinformation with people trying to sell their services and people trying to capitalize on this time of year and people recording things for sensationalism. And I just want to say, stay in your knowledge about what everything Magic Hour has taught you over these years. Like, this is our season. This is go time. Okay. This is the major leagues. Stay in your power, stay in your discernment, and just remember that there's no spirits getting trapped trying to be like stuck in a mirror or haunting you or in a doll or trying to hurt you. Like, mediums online that are saying those types of things. There's just going to always be an uptick around this time. And the paranormal activity industry, because it is an industry, makes a lot of money from those types of things. And as a medium, it breaks my heart because I care and I don't want people to be scared and close up from their gifts and their birthright of connection. So that's just my little disclaimer at the top of the episode.
As someone who was so fearful, especially as a child, like I couldn't watch scary movies. Even I couldn't watch like Men in Black scared me as a child. I just was because the guy in the suit, and he's so gross and creepy. Anyway,
Honestly, fair.
yeah, he has that crazy voice and he's like decaying. Anyway, but as someone who's like always had a hard time with this season and, had to really set like strong boundaries for myself, it's been such a beautiful thing opening myself up to this experience of being a witch and being in a coven and realizing that instead of it being a time where that stuff is louder, it's actually a time where my connection, my magical gifts, my intuition feels even more connected. And I think that's like really exciting and feels powerful versus before where I felt really powerless and afraid. So, yeah, maybe it's a good time this October to like reframe all that for yourself too and be like, I'm not a victim of spooky ghosts. I'm actually a powerful witch that can connect to the magic all around me.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting because I am like the biggest scaredy cat too, or at least I really used to be when I like didn't understand all of this stuff and like could sense spirit presences, but then didn't understand what I was sensing. And I was just so scared. And actually, when I went to your Creep LA last year to the haunted house, I realized how far I've come with all of this stuff because there's so many like creepy scare actors and ghosts and things like that. And like, I was not scared at all. I was just entertained by the story and the actors and stuff. But I'm at such a grounded place with understanding the spirit world and not even just understanding, but as you develop mediumship wise, you begin to trust the spirit world at such a deep level. That's been such a profound shift in my mediumship. And just like being in that energy is so priceless and unshakable. And it does change the way that you interact with the world around you, especially during spooky season.
Yeah, for sure. Even your journey, like connecting to spirit, used to be so full of fear and the unknown. And now, like, your experience of it is so full of love and exciting expansion that it's like, you can't scare me with some pretend person in a mask trying to be spooky. It's like, I know what's real. And that's just pretend. That's just a thrill, I feel like how a roller coaster is a thrill. It's like, the scary movies and this haunted houses are just about an excitement. It's not about anything that's real.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of funny because, like, in one of the parts when we're underground in that kind of like prison cell area, there were a couple of these girls who were like ghostly spirits that maybe like died in there or something. And it was like it was an interactive haunted house. So they can like come up to you, and I don't think they could touch us.
No, yeah, I touched people.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, it was a year ago and I have a bad memory, but there was like one of the little girls, she was like this ghost, and all the other people in my group were like shaking and kind of like hiding from her. And I was like, "Come give me a hug, you poor little innocent child. Like, did you pass here? Do you need me to give a message to somebody? Like, you sweet child." I'm like, "Just so you know, you're not trapped here. Like, you can go anywhere that you want to go." And I was like really interacting with them from such a different space than the rest of my group.
It's so funny. She probably was like, this is supposed to be scary.
No, she was like, "Anyway, I don't want to go around this girl anymore."
Yeah. That's so funny.
Yeah, but that essence of like not being afraid anymore and leaning into deeper trust leads me into just a quick little thing I wanted to share. So the other day I was in a reading and I was connecting with this lady who was super lovely, but one of the like main things that she wanted was me to tell her what the code was that she set up with her angels, and kind of like, yeah, I just want to like have confirmation basically that like they're real and they're here. And so I asked for a very specific code word, and like if you can say it, then I'll like really know that my angels are here. And so I feel mixed things because on the one hand, I totally understand and respect the need for evidence and the need for me to say things that I couldn't have known to show you that your angels are really there. But that evidence, trying to force it to only be one myopic, tight little hole of evidence, is basically trying to boss around your angels and being like, it comes from this energetic vibration of control. And control is like the inverse frequency of miracles. And so I don't think that it's like a punishable offense if somebody asks that. I don't get offended by it because I completely understand it. But as I was tuning into it, first of all, what I want to say is if it was that easy, I would do it. Like if I could just be like, yeah, of course. Oh, okay, yeah, I've got Brenda on the line right now, and she's actually saying that you wanted me to say watermelons without seeds. Okay, perfect. Yep. Like that is not the language that spirit speaks. They speak a language of sensory information. And what they were saying too is that like sometimes you'll be on the vibration to get the code, and you're like where you're at in consciousness is a match for that. And that's actually happened to me where somebody was like, if it's real, say star. And like she said that in her head. Then all of a sudden he yelled star in my head. And I was like, whoa, he just yelled star. And she's like, I just asked him to. So like sometimes if you're on the exact vibration, like that can happen. But other times you're not on that wavelength, or other times the code that they set up might not work with your primary clair. Like I might be feeling something so deeply, but the code is needing me to see something and I'm just not seeing it. Like that's not the wavelength that I'm on. That's a part of it. And then the other thing that they said is when people ask for a code, it feels akin to like say there's a whole movie worth of information of like scenes and characters and feelings and lessons and themes and motifs. But it's like, okay, like I'm ready for you to talk about the prop in scene 3, like so zoomed in on like one thing. And it's like maybe somebody even watched that movie and could tell you all about it, but they're like, I don't know what that prop was in scene 3. And when you're trying to like control the experience from a place of not trusting it, it just can skew the whole thing. So I'm like, don't worry. I'm going to talk to you all about the movie. I'm going to follow the direction of where my consciousness is being led. I'm going to give you evidence about things I couldn't have known. And we are going to get there. But that's why I personally, even as like an evidential reader, I don't super resonate with like, give me a code, because it can just throw everything on tilt about the reading, especially if you're with a newer reader who it makes them get tripped up and in their head. Like for me, that doesn't get me in my head. I just like kindly explained to her why that's not the way it works, even though I really wish it was, because that would be so easy. Like life would be great. And she was so kind about it and understood. And we moved on from there and had a great reading. But like for readers who are newer or their confidence or their skills aren't as honed and they are like kind of in a vulnerable space still, something like that can just derail the entire reading. And then they get into their head and it's like just trying to guess the code. And for me, I was like, look, as soon as a reader goes into looking for something or searching for something, they're out of the power and they're in their head. So I was like, I'm not going to be searching for your code, but I will be opening to what your angels want you to know. If I'm on the right wavelength to bring it through, amazing. But if I'm not, don't worry, like other evidence and things will come up that will show you that they're really here.
That's so interesting. I think it also kind of plays into stuff you talk about like free will and like the journey that I feel like we are here to go on, and that is the journey that our angels are invested in. It's not a journey of having all the answers and the proof, because I think that like sort of negates the magical, like, unknowableness that we've signed up for. So like if they could just prove it in an unequivocal way, there'd be no space for you to need to trust. And I feel like the trust can be a bit of the magic sauce, not to necessarily trust blindly, but to trust in yourself and the feelings that you're experiencing with your connection. Instead of being able to prove without a shadow of a doubt, it's like, well, I thought this and she said that, so it's real. It's like, but does it feel real? Do you feel connected? I feel like our angels are more invested in that type of journey for us than the cut and dry journey of like, see, proved it, got it. It's like you then have to trust in the things that Taylor brings through and feel how they resonate with you. I think there's like more to gain from that than having something that's like a quick and easy, like something to point to.
Yeah, which sometimes those quick and easy things to point to can also just be somebody psychically picking that up instead of actually communicating with your angels and guides. And that's just like a whole other thing, but the what came through when you were talking about that is like, where are we trying to even control signs and magic and how our angels and guides show up for us? It's like that, to me, needing a sign shows that we're in this control holding of the reins and it's really hard for us to let go. And often how we do one thing shows up in other areas of life in multiple ways. So it's like, I understand that need for proof, but then let your angels prove it to you in their way instead of you being like, and this is exactly the timing and the way and the word, and this is exactly how I want it, like on a silver platter. Because where are we recreating that in other areas of our life? And where do we need to like release control so that miracles can come through? Because I think that we can shoot ourselves in the foot sometimes and be like, angels, like, if you're really here, then show me this one thing. And while I think specifics are great, like, that's something in the spirit world when I talk to them, they're like, yeah, I don't need just one sign with them. Like, I'm constantly talking to them, I'm constantly sending them signs and synchronicities. So I think that we can kind of narrow in from this place of trying to feel in control, but like, let your angels blow your mind. Let your loved ones in the spirit world do magical shit that is more powerful and impressive than your mind could have come up with. And maybe that is sending you a really specific sign, but it also might be something completely different. And like, in a session, for example, where they're like, I only want to focus on the code to prove that this is real. It's like, okay, we can spend the session and the time talking about that, but your angels are talking about a sister that you're distant with and that there's some soul lessons that they want to talk about there. I think that's much more important than trying to regurgitate what you told them before you came. So I think there's bigger things at play, that just noticing where you can leave room for more magic that your head and control is trying to direct or force or contrive.
Yes, I literally was gonna say it doesn't leave room for magic, it's so funny, I have a friend who, like, definitely doesn't believe in this stuff and is super cynical, and we were all pulling, like, animal cards to see what our spirit animals were, and he kinda, like, bustled in and was like, "If it's real, I'll pull this card. It's a spider. It isn't real," and walked off, and I was like, "Okay, like, I see where your head's at with it, but you left no room for the process. You left no room for connection and the magic. And like maybe Spider has information for you that you actually need to hear that could blow your mind and open you to something deeper than just confirmation would have done, you know? So yeah, I really relate.
And also, if you were someone's spirit guides and they were speaking to you that way, like, I'm sorry, but spirit is not ours to command. Like, I beg your pardon, but spirit and angels and guides are not ours to demand or force or push or control. They're unconditionally loving, but they're like, okay, we're here for you when you're ready to join us. And that sort of bullying, bossing, controlling energy that's kind of hostile is not their vibe.
Yeah, as far as I can gather, not what they're hoping to get us to see. So why would they sort of play into that just because we think that's what we need? It's like they're trying to open our minds to like a deeper understanding of existence, like a deeper possibility of what's possible within ourselves and the world. So they're not going to focus on that. Like that's not why they want to guide us. So like that's whatever to them. They want to guide us because they want us to connect with our sister or heal our relationships with people or, you know, deepen our wonder of the world, you know, and whatever else that I can't know that they want us to know. It's like literally the need for control is something that I think they're trying to help us get away from. And so they're not going to play into that just to prove something to us. That's my takeaway.
I don't think our angels and guides are people pleasers. It's like, okay, tough guy, you've got it all figured out. Go ahead. We'll be here when you're ready to maybe soften a little bit.
Exactly.
So, before we get into the first listener questions, no surprise here. Magic Maker is our book of the month. This is Pam Grossman's book. So beautiful, full of just so much wisdom. She was the guest on episode 237. So, make sure to check that out. The Enchanted Path to Creativity. And it's a fusion of exploring like every possible magical practice that you can pour into your creative practices and weave together and embody that magician archetype of like connecting with spirit for guidance and ideas, weaving spells into your creative projects, like the different demons that try to sabotage our creativity. There's just so much in this book, and I highly, highly, highly recommend it.
Yes. And just shout out to that episode. I was listening to it on my way home from work today. And it's so amazing, packed with so much magic and guidance and ideas. And I didn't finish it yet. And I can't wait to get back to it. It's maybe my favorite episode we've ever done. Like
Oh my
it's just
God.
so incredible. So don't sleep on that one. I can't wait to get the book. And even if you don't think of yourself as a creative, because literally life is creative. So you are a being and you are creative. I just loved the stuff about being the magician. Like it's just packed with so much juicy stuff. So definitely listen to that episode and get the book.
Yes. And I was thinking because I think that episode is like an hour and 42 minutes long. And I was like, maybe we should be called Magic Hours at this point because we are really living up to our Jupiter and Gemini chart and we go long. But you know what? I wouldn't have it any other way.
And that's the beauty of a podcast and being able to press pause and come back to it. It's not like, you know, back in the day when you would catch a TV show at exactly 6 p.m. It's like such a wonderful way that we get to access art in that way, you know. So who cares if it's 2 hours long? Mo better, you know?
Yeah, so true. My husband was like, you really are the right lady to have a podcast. He's like, you really can talk for a long time. I was like, I know, I really can, can't I?
Guilty as well.
Yeah, we between the two of us, we have some prominent air sign placements and we can just gab and gab. So let's get into the questions.
Yes, I'm so excited. Okay. Hi, Taylor and Claire. Magic Hour has been a huge catalyst for my spiritual growth and trust. So thank you, thank you, thank you for the work you do. Here's my question. I'm a mother of 2 young children, and I feel a lot of grief about the pace of modern life and the disconnection we have from the planet. I think my soul has lived a lot of lives, or maybe just one that really stuck with me in time periods and cultures where we lived more interdependently and in tune with the planet. I've been utterly obsessed with the Outlander series and books because that time feels pure in some ways, though surely less safe and opportune for women. But sometimes just existing in this time, taking my kids shopping for clothes, picking up takeout on the way home, and embracing the norms of this time is hard for me. I see plastic and waste everywhere and long for the times when our belongings were more personal and coveted, where meals were communal and homemade, and where life in general was simpler and more nature based. My question is what to do with this grief and how to honor it while living in this time. I don't want to deprive my kids or try to make them live like it's not 2025, but it's a struggle for me to do so that can weigh heavily on me. I'd love your enlightened take. How do I embrace the time I live in? Just to clarify further, I live life in tune with my values as much as possible. We cook and eat real food, are fairly conscious in our consumption, and prioritize rest, family, friends, and time in nature. And yet I still feel grief and overwhelm, hence my question. Thank you and big hugs. Kate, Aquarius Sun, Capricorn Moon, and Taurus Rising.
Kate, thank you for this question. I think we can all feel that on a sense. Like, I think we all yearn. And it's actually funny because Claire and I recorded Sitting with Spirit before the listener question episode. And literally, one of the messages of it is about embracing simplicity and going back to more kind of older, traditional, communal things. So that's an interesting synchronicity for when we get to that part of the podcast coming up later. So, our emotions are not accidents. And I think that it is really beautiful that you're noticing this emotion and instead of debating it and being like, but everything about this time, these are all the good things. So I shouldn't feel that way. So I don't. Like, I think it's really beautiful because what we yearn for isn't an accident. And every single emotion that comes up is a messenger for a reason. So I think that we can feel on like a deep level that the way that we're living is not sustainable. I remember Sarah Lyons from season 1, she said that the uprising of witches was the earth's immune system turning back on. And I don't think that it's a coincidence that so many people are feeling the same way. And it's interesting because I think that what is really popular in pop culture, literature, and movies is speaking to a greater collective consciousness theme. And I think it's also no accident that like Outlander is wildly popular, Game of Thrones, like the romantasy genre, all of these like worlds that we're escaping to outside of our own world really seem to have these core values of like simplicity, community, connection to nature. And so I would start by just really honoring the grief that you're feeling because, you know, it sounds like you have a lot of old soul energy. And as an Aquarius sun, you're not here to fit in. You're here to make the world a better place and make the rules for yourself. So there's definitely between your Capricorn and Aquarius placement, a push pull between tradition and breaking the rules and like finding where that balance is for you. And so I think start by just honoring the grief, opening maybe to what your angels want you to know about it, what is for your highest good to know about it right now. And then I would really sit with like the Outlander universe or whatever that sort of fantasy world brings up in you. And I would start to write down like key words that you long for within that. I know that you're already like going into nature and cooking healthy food, and you're already doing this to a certain extent. And it's interesting because this also came up in like the house witchery episode of the autumnal equinox magic episode, where it's sort of like less screen time and more hands on like crafts. And so there might be ways that you find more boundaries with our modern worlds. Like just because we live in this modern world doesn't mean that we don't have to have boundaries with it to stay healthy and to stay sane. And I think that like in some ways your instincts are probably kicking in to like protect your kids on a certain level and protect the peace and stay connected to like core family values in some way. And so there might be ways where you're like, okay, like every other day we don't do phones after this hour, or we're going to be doing these crafts together, or just starting to see how you can weave more screen free nature time and simplicity into the day. And I invite you to see how that feels, because I think everything right now is so fast. And I think screens make it so fast. And I think when we long for those times, it like pop culture kind of puts that in our psyche in a big way. It's like we're really longing for more simplicity, silence, slowness, and community connection. And how do you need to create more boundaries with this world so that you can create that and foster that? And if the grief is coming up, it's telling you like this isn't enough. Like I want a little bit more of this. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that feel that way, myself included. And I'm sure that there also might be ways that people want to foster it in their own community. Like maybe you could take an archery class or an herbalism course where you learn, like, if you're really attracted to that Outlander type of theme, like there might also be ways that you can integrate some of the skills and practical knowledge of that time too, because right now everything is so like immediate and done for us and fast. And I think that coming back to like practical skills, it's funny because I actually have a resolution that I'm going to make for 2026 is I want to get trained to like survive in nature. I really want to learn like more wilderness survival skills because I feel so disconnected from it. And I think that that's where a lot of us feel a deep grief too, a disconnection from like our primal nature, mother nature, the way that we've been for so long, and it's a constant battle with like the speed and pace of where we are now.
Yeah, that's so cool, Taylor. I love that. If you do that, let me know about it. Maybe I'll join you. And yeah, Kate, I couldn't relate to this more. And I was really excited to share your question. It's definitely a ever present feeling for me as well, and kind of an ever present battle of my life of like feeling called to, pursue a career in the arts that takes me to a city like LA, and feeling so called and drawn to just want to disappear onto an island or into the woods and just sit by a stream and read a book. And, but I also, something that it made me think of reading your question was something Taylor said, and I've heard from a lot of other people too, of this idea that we as souls chose this time to come down to earth and face the problems and the challenges that we are facing collectively as humans and as consciousness. So the fact that you feel this way is a necessary component of the way that we can hopefully shift these toxic ways of life. And so seeing it, for sure honoring your grief, but seeing it as this gift that you're bringing to the collective, that this isn't the way forward of just consuming and being wasteful and disconnected from nature and disconnected from each other and ourselves. I think a lot of us are feeling that way. And I imagine that there's going to be a major pushback, like a major movement of pushback, especially with AI coming into it and just people wanting to be in community and in nature. And I think more and more people are going to get activated to that call and that feeling. So I think it's no accident that you're here right now and that you feel this way, and that you have children that activates that feeling even more, that protective, fierce energy of like, this is out of discord with our spirits. And how are we going to make a shift? And so maybe anchoring into that, like, part of your purpose here on this earth is to feel this way and shepherd in a new way. And doing that on the small scale with your family and your community around you, and seeing the ripple effect of that. Like, I think we're all going to play a part in shepherding in a better society that takes care of each other and the earth. Like, nothing is more important than that in our world right now. And the more of us that feel this pain and this urge for it, the more chance we have of shifting and calling in a better world.
I could not agree more. I also feel like you feeling this strongly and this sense of grief, and then you listen to it and you try to change what you can, but that grief is still there. That really speaks to me of like soul purpose and higher themes. And sharing your grief, talking to other people about it. It doesn't mean that has to be like your profession or like what you devote your life to, but there might be ways that you're less alone in this feeling than you realize. And we've shifted from being human beings to economic units, like literally to the powers that be. We're just economic units to them. And I think we're all feeling disheartened, and it is a huge loss. And I think there's also a layer of this that ties back to the witch wound. That's like, I miss the connection to nature and the simplicity. But at the same time, if we were back in that time, we might be like, wow, I miss being, like you said, women's rights have kind of come farther. I mean, we're kind of iffy on it right now, but it's a much better time in some ways to be a woman. So I think the pendulum is always swinging and no time period is ever perfect. But with intuitive information, when we get the message, it goes away. And so the fact that this grief is still coming up shows that there's deeper wells of awareness and deeper things that are looking to be shared, and maybe deeper ways you can use your voice or make a difference in some way, or maybe find like aligned programs that are like for families that want to kind of be immersed. Like there might be creative solutions. I saw this lady on TikTok. I think she's creating this village called like Ember Brook or something. And basically, she's creating this communal village based off of like a fantasy world where it's just like cottages and tea shops and bookstores and a cute little downtown and a stream that goes through the town. I think that it's so obvious that we all would love that and like are looking for that. And I think that the more people talk about it, connect with it, share their voice around it, the more than that we can build the world that reflects it, and just be like, no more taking until we've destroyed our home.
That is so exciting and magical. I want to live in that village. Wow. My mind is blown. I love it so much. I'm obsessed. Yeah, I so agree. I even think like festival culture is a little bit like it. It's like a playground for creativity. It's a place where people come and share their gifts and try new things and rejoice in community and music. Like in so many pockets of our world, I feel like these flowers, my friend said this, and I thought it was such a beautiful metaphor. These flowers are blossoming of a new way of doing things, a more intentional, heart led, planet loving, people loving way of doing things. And one flower blossoms and it spreads the ideas to blossom in another place and another. We are powerful and we can shift things just by expressing these things and expressing a new way of doing them. So, I mean, my friends and I are talking about trying to create a commune and living in communal living spaces. Like a lot of people are talking about this and a lot of people want this shift. And the more that we express it and explore it, the greater the possibilities that we can achieve it.
Absolutely. And maybe if it's a type of situation too, where like over the summer you can get away for a couple weeks, maybe you rent a cabin somewhere and like immerse yourself in that way, or give yourself larger chunks of that too. So I think don't deny that need. Don't debate yourself about your grief. Like really feel it and listen to it. And then I think that that is just setting a really beautiful precedent for loving yourself too and leading you on your highest timeline. So thank you for that question.
Yes, thank you, Kate. Absolutely loved that. Okay. This listener question is from Erin. Hi there. I'd love to submit an October listener question. I'm a medium in training, thanks in large part to being inspired by Taylor's journey with mediumship and getting the mediumship bug. I'm currently doing a mediumship course, and we have a suggested reading list. One of the books is Life on the Other Side by Sylvia Brown. I'm reading it and decided to look into her, and I went down a rabbit hole of Reddit threads and YouTube videos discrediting her, including an article that looked into predictions she made on TV, and most, if not all, were proven false. She has publicly told the parents of two missing children that both of their children were dead, only for the children to be found years later, after the mother of one of the children tragically died from alcoholism after hearing Sylvia's prediction. I know we can't be 100% accurate 100% of the time, but reading stuff like this brings up my inner skeptic in a big way. She seems to have predicted things quite resolutely, which also doesn't sit right with me. While I know prediction isn't the same as mediumship, when I read stuff like this, I question myself and how real mediumship really is, which also closes me off from that connection to spirit. That said, I do feel like fear is part of it. The skeptic in me seems like she's trying to protect me because she's afraid of connecting with spirit and people who have passed. All of this to say, I have a few questions. How do you make sure that you are a medium that practices with integrity? How do you recommend I move through this fear? And how do you tune out the noise of people who don't believe? Thank you so much, Erin.
Wow. Thank you for these questions, Erin. And this is so tied in with what we were talking about in the beginning of like this time of year brings out all of the craziness. So, one thing that I want to say is that I, first of all, am really proud of you for staying in your discernment because it can be very easy to be like, I'm a student and I'm just going to take whatever my teacher or course is saying and implement it as my beliefs. And I think it's ultimately the highest path of development for you to always put that sense of resonance and what feels a little off and icky to you, no matter if I'm saying it or anybody is saying it, always go with that discernment within your heart through your own development journey. And sometimes our guides will literally put us in situations that are asking us to trust our discernment. And just because I maybe study at one place or interview one guest or something, et cetera, doesn't mean I just blindly believe or resonate every single thing that they have to say. And we're all on our own unique journey with our own unique path, and we have to stay true to what resonates with us. And so, first of all, congratulations for being on your mediumship development path. I think that's so beautiful. And I think you already are so connected to truth and more information than you might give yourself credit for. So, I am a little bit unique in that for the majority of my career, I have been self taught. So I have not been exposed to very many other psychics or mediums and what their philosophies are. That being said, when the first place I ever went to study was Arthur Findlay College, and that is the like top tier place for evidential mediumship. And I felt very much like I trusted that space. But even there, I didn't fully agree with 100% of every single thing that was at that school. So I think that there is this sense of like, again, staying in your own discernment. So with that being said, I'm not super familiar with Sylvia Browne. I haven't read their books. I'm curious. I wish that you were here to answer this, but I'm curious to know who you're learning mediumship for, if they're an evidential medium, if you've ever seen them give a reading that was like impressive, or maybe even impressive isn't the right word, but just rooted in evidence. That's my first question is what is the credential of the person teaching the class, and are they an evidential medium? And usually people who are safe and ethical in this space don't want you to tell them anything. They want to be the ones to tell you and to give you the evidence. And for anybody who's newer to the podcast, make sure to check out my real life Hogwarts journey episodes. There's 4 of them that document my time at Arthur Findlay College. So yeah, I think that this is a really powerful invitation for you to lean into your sense of discernment. And I would even maybe talk to your teacher about it and see what they say. Like, hey, so I did a deep dive on one of the books and this is what came up and this is what I don't agree with. And I think your teacher's answer will really tell you if they are safe in this space, to be trusted in this space, et cetera, et cetera. 2 is that I'm so horrified by the story of Sylvia Browne. I mean, I've heard that name before, but I don't really know about her. And I also want to say, sometimes people in this field start out connected and in truth, and then ego takes over, and there's a sense of like fame and recognition, and then they completely change. Like, I remember Doreen Virtue was a huge name in the angel space. Then she became like born again Christian and said it's all like demons. So people can also have like, I know Claire's making a face and I completely agree.
What a turn of events. Wow.
I know. I was like, oh God. So sometimes people can start one way and then it's like their body of work takes a dramatic shift. And so there's also just like parsing out, because spirituality can be a very delicate industry because egos can throw everything off. And the more success and recognition you get doesn't mean you can't be amazingly accurate and ethical and successful. But some people who aren't doing their shadow work and healing and integration along the path can get caught up in that. And that's why I think that personally, grieving parents, it's like you need to be delicate with everyone as a medium, 1,000,000%. But like grieving parents in particular is like one of the most delicate types of situations that you can really find yourself in as a medium. And I'm really horrified at the notion of her claiming that these children were past or making predictions about them, especially on TV as entertainment. Like that already has so many layers of not feeling right and feeling really icky to me. As like a personal anecdote, I literally was in a mediumship reading the other day, and this woman's grandma came through and she was showing me an orange cat whose name started with the letter B. And the client said, like, yeah, I have a cat, boy cat, orange. His name starts with the letter B. And then afterwards, she was saying, like, yeah, and he's been missing for 3 years. So, like, did the fact that he showed up with my grandma, does that mean that, like, he's passed? And literally, I wouldn't even tell her that. I was like, I got that there was a boy cat with a B name that was orange, but I was like, your grandma was talking about him. He himself didn't come through. So I don't feel comfortable fully commenting on that. And it was like kind of a little bit of a gray area. And I always err on the side of caution for a gray area. So I think already there's like so many layers of where that feels really off to me. And it always goes back to ego over service. It doesn't feel like she was really protecting the subconscious health of the sitter or phrasing things in ways that were helpful or even connected to truth. It feels like she was just in her ego on TV wanting to make some like dramatic, flashy prediction. And so that's why there's a foundation called the Forever Family Foundation. And the medium Laura Lynn Jackson is a member of this foundation. And it's a foundation that puts mediums through the ringer of like rigorous testing. And that's sort of like a safe space for parents that have lost children. And the caliber of medium that you have to be able to read for those parents is super high. So it's just all to say it's a super delicate situation. So the fact that you're already doing the research, already feeling things off, already don't resonate with that is like such a powerful sign in your development. Integrity and mediumship is everything. And it's not about being impressive. It's not about being right. It's not about being flashy with your evidence. It's about being of service to the sitter in front of you and the people in spirit that want to give their messages. And this is like a whole class. I just recorded this part of my mentorship about ethics. It's a whole category and it's a whole discussion. But the base of it is, are you an ego or service? And how can you really take care of the person that's sitting in front of you? And you guys know I'm not a fan of predictions. I'm just not. I think they take our power away. I think also though that example was less about predictions and more about kind of saying like, yep, they're here in the spirit world. And I think sometimes as mediums are developing or this or that, it can sometimes be confusing because sometimes people in the spirit world talk about people who are still here. And it is easy to confuse that information if you're less developed or just not like on your A game in some way. Because that's why I wouldn't even make a call about a cat that has been missing for 3 years, because it felt to me like her grandma was talking about the cat because the cat himself didn't come through. And so sometimes it can be as subtle as like, oh my gosh, yeah, like that grandpa is here. But no, that grandpa isn't there. The grandma's talking about always being with him when they were here, whatever it is. So it can be also very like subtle as well. So I think that the integrity part is really important. And I think who you trust as your teacher in this space is really important. And I would definitely say if you see something, say something on your path to development. If you have a question about ethics, ask it. And I really do feel like the people who are the most tuned in and evidential, which again, you can start that way and then start to feel fame and success and not end up that way. But the people who are consistently in that here and now are not the people going on TV and trying to like do those types of things. And then moving through the fear is really good self awareness. And fear will continually be a moving target for you. Fear is always going to exist. And as soon as you conquer one form of it, it will change forms along your mediumship development journey and take another form because our mediumship journey is also a soul growth journey. Your guides will be really crafty in the way that they set up unique obstacle courses to feel the fear and do it anyway. Like I said, it's always a shifting target. So I think that feeling the fear and doing it anyway is the recipe to mediumship. It's never fully going to feel easy in some way. And then as soon as you get to a tier where it does, you'll be challenged in a new way. So I think that it's just part of the journey. And especially in this world where we've been told it's demonic and there's so much witch wound and there's so much religious programming and we're talked about possession, there's so much misinformation and there's so many quacks out there who have no evidence or true connection but are trying to scare the f out of people. Like it makes me so upset. And so I think it's an act of power and resistance. The more you say, I'm stronger than the fear. I feel the fear, but it's not going to rule me and I'm still going to show up. And the more you develop and the more you show up, the more you'll realize that spirit is all love. I've even connected with people at this point in the spirit world who did horrible, atrocious things when they were here. And they're still, when they come through in the reading, they're not trying to hurt me or claw at me or scare me. They're literally showing me who they were, apologizing, talking about accountability and healing. It truly is a different awareness on the other side. I feel like also this is an opportunity for you to have your own back and trust your own discernment and trust yourself. And the more you can lean into that, the less you'll be afraid on the journey because you're like, I have my own back and I'm calling out what feels right to me and what doesn't. And that's really important. And I think on your last point, the more you do this work and the more confident you get, the less it matters to you if other people believe or not. I've gotten to a place in my life that feels very free because I don't make it my responsibility for other people to learn their lessons. And I do not care if they believe me or not. Like in the past, I have this neighbor and he's like, yeah, I don't really believe in what you do. And in the past, I would have been like, first of all, it's a shame because there's so many people around him in spirit that I could bring through for him. I'm like, well, you have like a squad, but okay. But in the past, I would have been like, well, let me talk about this with you. And actually, like, this is the evidence. And actually, I'm going to burn myself out giving you a free reading, trying to make you believe. And I would have been so like activated. And at this point, what I say on my inside is, that's really a shame. Like, patriarchal PR strikes again. Abrahamic religious PR strikes again. Like, that sucks because there's so much comfort and magic to be had on this path. But I respect that. And his soul is where he's at in his journey. And that's all good. And actually, I love that neighbor. He's super sweet. And I don't care if he feels that way. And so I think the more you build trust with yourself on this path, the less validation you'll need from people externally to tell you that it's real or true or that you're connected. And it's super normal in the beginning to feel like you need that because it's very like new and fresh and precarious and we're all wanting approval from other people. But I think the more we listen to our witch wound, the more we attract our oppressor. And the more we heal the witch wound, the more we attract our soul family. And this whole path is leading you to a place where you ultimately unshackle yourself from needing validation or approval from anyone else.
Yes, such a good question and so many great points that you brought up. I don't think I could say any of it better than you did, but I so get the fear about like, what if this isn't real? I felt that even connecting into my spirituality in the early stages of it, because I was really turned off by organized religion. And the last thing I wanted was to get swept up in something that wasn't grounded and real and that led me astray. So it's such a real thing. And then seeing evidence and examples of people who are clearly not operating in an ethical way with it, or people who've clearly been wrong, fuels that feeling of like maybe it's all BS or maybe it's not real, but clearly you're tapped in and feeling it. And you've had experiences and your connection with Taylor and her words that resonate. So I think it's so important to recognize too that like just because someone else misused it, mishandled it, misrepresented it, we don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. It doesn't prove anything, just that this person was being unethical. And I think what Taylor said is such a good example. And I've watched that in many instances with people that I've known. Like I had a really great acting teacher, and then he got very successful and he kind of like lost his magic because it became so about his success and monetizing and being seen, and his ego just took him and ran away with him. And I feel like the person that opened me so deeply to these amazing ideas suddenly wasn't there anymore. And that doesn't mean that when he was doing that, that wasn't real. It just means that sometimes we get lost. And I think fame and success are a tricky, tricky thing to navigate. It's like that quote about how like power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's like, I think fame and success can really like do a number on you. And the more famous and more successful, the more grounded you have to be in it. So, taking that into account that like just because this person didn't handle it well doesn't mean it's wrong. And yeah, I just love hearing about your journey, Taylor, with your relationship to this, because obviously I watched you in the early stages and feeling like you had to prove and, define it and get people to see, and really knowing that like, when you know deep in your soul, like you do know. And if other people aren't there, that's their journey and you don't have to be on their journey for them.
Absolutely. And I think throughout all of the facets of this question, the most important part is the relationship of trust to yourself, where it's like trusting your discernment along the path. And then it doesn't matter what's happening externally because you're so grounded in your knowing. And I have a nagging suspicion that that's where your guides are leading you right now with this lesson, anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is like so the overall lesson of just like when we're so grounded in the trust with ourself, we can't be, led astray, or we can't falter because we feel it and we feel our inner knowing.
Yeah. And so maybe this is also just a redirect of like, okay, maybe I'm going to walk away from this class or this teacher. Maybe I'll give them a chance to explain their philosophy to me. And maybe you got what you needed and your guides are leading you to the next thing now. Like, just trust that you're being led in this moment. One last thing I want to say too about that question is that sometimes we equally learn from what works and what doesn't work. And so there might also be lessons that are showing up very clearly for you right now in the type of mediumship that doesn't resonate with you, what doesn't work for you, what you don't want to do. And that's just as valuable as seeing people that blow our minds and open us to what's possible. And I remember I was part of this mediumship circle and a new lady joined, and she definitely was not in a place where she was ready to be giving readings professionally, and yet she was doing that. And in like the first session with me, she like connected to I don't know what, and was like, I just want to tell you I'm getting a message from your guides that like your relationships are all about to blow up and like everything is gonna be really painful and difficult. And she just started like making these predictions. I was like, who the hell are you?
Okay, Professor Trelawney.
Literally. And I stopped the circle and I actually called her out. And I was like, "Hey, like that was super unprofessional. Like you don't know where my mental health is at. You don't know my triggers or my history. There was not one shred of evidence or anything you couldn't have known in that. It wasn't helpful, healing, or hopeful. It was super unprofessional and I'm actually super surprised that you give readings to other people. Like what's happening?" And that ended up though, that like reaction caused such a trigger in me. I really was like upset and I felt violated by her. And I was like, why are you in this mediumship circle? And she's somebody that like studied at Arthur Findlay College, which I think already like gave me a sense of like trusting her, even though just because someone goes somewhere or learns someone, it's like there's not one size fits all or like one green light in this whole industry. And so I was like sitting with that. And then later that day, I had a reading with someone who was like my own personal reading where I was giving the reading. And it was an angel reading with someone who was in a super delicate, fragile state. And she was so shattered because deep down she knew that this romantic partnership she was with was not the one. But she felt so vulnerable about that. And like she was approaching this age where if she left this person, she'd never have kids. And it just was like this whole deep thing. And it made me realize the way I spoke to her and led her through that session after having been so triggered by that other lady having no care for my subconscious health and just saying wild shit, it completely gave me more lessons than in that moment for how to approach this lady in my session than that lady giving me a phenomenal reading in my circle could have ever given me. And so there's also something so valuable about getting bad readings because it really shows you like what you don't appreciate as a sitter and how it feels to be vulnerable as a sitter and how you can be a better reader for vulnerable sitters when you see people like Sylvia Brown apparently trampling on their feelings. There's so much information to learn from that.
Yes, that's such a good point. Like, just how mistakes and failures hold so much ripe learning and knowledge. Like, watching and seeing something that doesn't resonate or doesn't work is also such great information for us on what we do want to do or what we don't want to do. I thought that was such a good point.
Yeah. And I know I'm speaking about that lady really harshly, but it frustrates me because it's like those are the types of people that scare people away. Or, it doesn't mean she can't give good readings on some days and be trained, but just when you're in a position of taking money or giving a reading or claiming that you're connecting to evidence or messages, it puts you in a position where going back to integrity and ethics, like I take a really light-handed, cautious approach. And I think it's because I started with angels. Like they're so all about free will and very much just like current high vibe guidance to connect you with your highest timeline. And I really take that to heart. And I'm sure many of us have been on the other side of readings that trigger us, and sometimes it's no fault of the readers. They're saying what they're getting and it is evidence based, but it brings up a lot of pain. But sometimes those experiences have so many lessons for us and how we can then be more compassionate or a better representative for angels, ancestors, and guides.
Yes, such a good point. Yeah. And those deep experiences stay with us and help us to remember in those moments of like, I would never want to create that dynamic with someone. So, how can I really be gentle in this moment with them and really show up for their needs, not just my ego's idea of like, I have something to say? It's like, that's not what this exchange is about. It's about helping someone. And there's always like tactics to approaching someone when they're vulnerable, like ways that they'll receive the message, things they're ready to hear. All of that's so important in these super delicate sessions where people are like pouring their hearts out to you, like trying to connect with someone they love and lost. The stakes are so high for people in those moments. Like there has to be such a level of integrity and like discernment with how you approach it.
And you can also narrate the experience like, okay, and I'm not 100% sure about this, but I'm getting something along the lines of blah, 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 blah. Like, instead of feeling this pressure to be like, I have to just like commit to it or say it, like, I've seen really talented mediums who are like, you know what? I am hesitant to say this because I'm not 100% sure, but let me know if it makes sense to you. And if it doesn't, we can kind of let it be. But I just want to talk about something with blah, 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 blah. And then the person might be like, yes, that makes perfect sense. Or they might not be. And then you can be like, okay, I felt as I was saying it that it wasn't completely right. And like sometimes as mediums, we have to admit when like we're a little off or we're not 100% sure or we're getting in our head. It's like there even the most professional mediums who are the most evidence-based and the most professional psychics and intuitives, like to me there's a level of humility of like just narrating the experience and admitting if something is a little bit off instead of just like letting it marinate in your sitter subconscious for the rest of their life.
Yes. And staying open to the fact that, like, even the information that you're coming through, the cat is a good example. It's like maybe the cat's consciousness can be in the spirit realm while it's also on earth. Like, we can't know that for 100% certainty one way or another. So, like, knowing that, like, we can't speak with certainty about these things, it's all coming through with information that we can feel our way through what resonates, what feels right. It's not cut and dry. It's fluid, it's moving, it's dynamic, it's hard to define.
Yeah. And I think my light touch is also just because I'm 2 years into my development. Like, hit me again when I'm 20 years in, and I'll probably be like, yeah, the cat's in spirit. All right. Like, so I think also just know where you're at in your development journey and honor that and like the level of hardcore predictions and things that you're giving to people.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, let's do one last one.
Okay, this question is from Marlene. Hi, apologies in advance if this is a bit dark. It is October after all, so we'll take it. But I had a very vivid dream a few years ago where a more or less dark entity told me that I will die in my 40s. She said a specific age, but I don't remember exactly the number. It was super random as it's not a fear I normally have. So this makes me even more scared that this dream is more real than I want, as it was coming out of nowhere and wasn't influenced by a scary movie or similar. Could this just be a bad entity that wanted to scare me, or could there be some truth to this? Thank you. I would truly appreciate your perspective, Marlene.
Thank you for this question, Marlene. Dream stuff is so interesting. And in episode 111 with Dr. Michael Lennox, which I really highly recommend, he was saying that in his studies of like thousands and thousands of dreamers, maybe it's 0.0001% of dreams, like maybe even less than that, where you dream something and it happens literally. Like it kind of goes back to what I was saying about establishing a code with angels and guides. Like if spirit's language was that literal, where it was just a direct line without like symbolic sensory information, we'd probably have like a lot of shit figured out on earth because we would just have that direct line. But instead, we're like out here playing Pictionary. And so I'm not trying to make light of such a heavy dream. And I definitely take seriously your feelings around it. But I think that there is some assurance that I want to give you that dreams are symbolic. And even when I had precognitive dreams of past loved ones passing away, it came in symbolic ways. Like even when I dreamt that like my grandma would have dementia, we were just like in an orange orchard and she didn't know who I was. And no matter how much I called to her, she wouldn't hear me or like listen to me. So it's like even when it translates to something literal in the physical world, there's an element of symbolism and psyche language. So that's the first thing that I want to say is that I think that there would be a lot more talk about this if people were getting dreams like that and then they were literally happening all the time. But it's like one in maybe a trillion, if ever. It's very rare, according to Dr. Michael Lennox, whose career is dedicated to this. And I also read his book, Psychic Dreamer, and I highly recommend it for like further info on this topic because it's so good. The other thing I want to say is that I believe that dark entities are not of spirit. I know that other people have different beliefs about this. I believe spirit is all love. And I think that like dark entities or negative attachments are unhealed shadows, repressed emotions, toxic dynamics. And I think that they exist here on the physical world. And I actually see this dream as a really positive thing where it's like, hey, you see this shadow thing? It's dying in your 40s. Like this negative attachment that's coming through, like you're going to have some sort of ego death or death and rebirth or phoenix energy in your 40s that might be very scary, but it's also getting rid of some negative quote unquote force that has been with you up until then. So I actually feel excited about this dream because to me, it reflects big growth and change. And also the fact that, like, it said a year, but you couldn't really remember it and this and that. I just really get the feeling from this story that your 40s and whatever age that is, like 43, 44, like it might be just like a chunk of time in your mid 40s. There's just this sense of, okay, deeper shadow work, deeper processing, whatever that negative entity that scares you is. Like, where is that something shadowy that you're ready to fully let die away here and now in your 40s?
Mm. Yes. I mean, when you said it, it just made a world of sense. It just was like, of course. Of course, that's what it meant. I think that's so true. And like for me, you always say this that my angels are very maybe literal is not the right word, but like persistent and efficient. And I feel like my subconscious dreaming is also like that. Like I'll have dreams, and when I wake up, it's so obvious that like this represents my anxiety about this, and this represents my fear around this. It's like comical in a way. But I think that is really true about dreams. Like they even talk about like when you dream that you're pregnant, doesn't mean you're going to have a baby necessarily. It probably means like a new idea is coming through or a new version of self or a new chapter. And same with death. It's like death often represents the closing of a chapter, the ending of something, not necessarily your life, but we can relate to death as an ending. And so our subconscious kind of shows us that. And so, yeah, maybe even an exploration of it could be to like ask yourself before you go to sleep or ask your subconscious, like, what is the thing that I'm facing that's dying away? How can I explore this more in terms of that positive lens and maybe see what comes through? And like Taylor always talks about, like, we are the most powerful beings in our realm, in our experience. Like nothing can come and get us. It's all here to help us grow and expand and learn and explore. So like I just love the idea that yeah, this is actually a moment where this boogeyman of your like shadow self is going to fall away because you're coming into this new sense of self, this new version of self.
Yeah. And I think that our dreams and our nightmares are also to me such like spirit guidance around fear. And that's been such a through line of this episode. But I think that even in, if you listen to the September listener questions episode, I talk about the chaos demon story. And even in that, I was so viscerally afraid in that dream. And I still said, like, F it. And I looked that demon in the eye and said, you are not the truth. And it went away. So I also feel like if that dream comes up again or somebody's having that nightmare, getting to such a level with trust and personal power in yourself that you say, okay, if 40s is my time to go, I'm ready to die. And I bet that dream would never come again. You got the lesson of probably surrender and detachment that it was trying to scare out of you to begin with. So I think dreams, like, and we talk about this in episode 111 too, that so many people see this like sleep paralysis demon. It's like a common occurrence. I've seen it myself. A lot of people call it like Hat Man, and there's like different iterations of it. And where is there evidence of that thing ever doing anything? It literally is a spirit guide around feeling fear and surrendering to it and knowing that we're safe. And so there's a sense too of like sometimes when we face these scary things in our dreams or our nightmares head on, it shifts something in like our personal power, our perception, our surrender to things that are out of our control. And so it's like I think that there's also an element of facing that negative entity and not giving it your power. And every time that happens in the dream, it goes away. Like, how many times in a dream have you been chased by something scary, but like it never catches you? Or as soon as it catches you, you wake up. It's like dream is so full of like innuendo and physical sensations of fear that feel so palpable, but then it's like very rare that something actually graphic or violent happens before we don't just wake up.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I have a friend who has this dream, this reoccurring dream where lions are chasing her. And so we were talking to her about like next time you have that dream, like what if you stopped and turned around and faced the lions and asked them like what they are trying to show you. And my roommate Mandy who does the music for Magic Hour, she often talks about that where in her dream she'll turn around and be like, "What?" Like, what? And how then it's like, poof, it disappears. So, and I think that's like also symbolism of our shadows. Like, as soon as we shine the light on our shadows and we acknowledge and see them, often the power they held like withers and goes away. It just takes us shining the light on it. It's not as scary as we think it is. We are fueling it with our fear in a way.
Yeah. And it's like, what if we hugged our sleep paralysis demon? Like, what would happen? What if we were like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for teaching me lessons around fear for all of these years. Like, I love you too, even though you scared me a little bit. Like, get in here. I've kind of gotten to a place, like, even on a subconscious level, where when nightmares happen, I'm a lot like Mandy, and then I'm like, okay, like, even on this level, I recognize that I have more power than the circumstances of this dream are trying to convince me that I have. And so I think also this feeling in the waking world of feeling really uncertain and questioning this dream and being afraid of it shows where there's more room for you deciding your fate, you no longer outsourcing your intuition or outsourcing your power to this dream and letting that part die away. And I wish I knew more details of the dream, because I think dream interpretation is like so interesting, because there's so many parallels to like the spirit world and dream interpretation, because it's such a psyche led language, and nothing about our dreams is arbitrary. It always has a deeper layer. It's really funny because I had this dream the other day where it was like my mom, my grandma, and my aunt. And they were like, come on, Taylor. Like, in the dream, I knew that they were like women. And I was like, I know that I want to go over there, but I can't yet. I'm going to Disneyland. And in the dream, they like wanted me to join them, and I went to Disneyland instead. And I was like, how literal does this have to be that like I'm not becoming a mom myself and I'm like having fun and enjoying life and staying in this like semi-adolescent like maiden phase before a mother? And it just made me laugh how literal it was. And I told my husband, and he was like, that is so accurate.
I love when you have dreams like that. It's just so funny to be like, okay, I guess I'm feeling that way, or I really see it. I wish that I could remember all of my dreams in a night. Like there's so much that you dream that you don't remember or aren't present for and like can't grasp. And I bet it would be just such a well of like, I wish I could really be present as I explore it all, because it's like a world of your imagination, a world of your subconscious.
Yeah. And something that just came through is that dreams are a place we can't lie to ourselves. And I think that in our waking life, we like lock things away and we lie to ourselves. We pretend we're fine. And the dream world is a place where we cannot lie to ourselves. And like our deepest truth and what our psyche wants us to know and what our subconscious truth is revealed. And I think that like fearful dreams and nightmares or grief dreams, it's like bringing up the things that we're lying to ourselves about in the waking world. And we just can't when we're asleep.
Yes, that's so true. That's so true. I literally had a dream recently like that. And I thought it meant something else. And then I realized I was like, oh, I feel like it's literally just reminding me that this is the dynamic of this situation. And then I stopped dreaming about it. I was like, huh.
Another parallel is similar to intuitive information. As soon as you get the message, it stops. The messenger can stop. So I feel like this dream that Marlene brought to the table is like so juicy and powerful. And I know that like originally she was afraid that this was a negative thing, but I see it as such like a deep, powerful, rich portal to better understanding yourself. And I'll be so interested to see, because like we were saying before, dreams are so symbolic. So it's almost like a guarantee that you're not going to pass in your 40s.
Yeah.
Like that you dream that.
No, I'm so curious to hear like any updates or if you explore this, how it shifts, or if some new information comes through.
Yeah, it's similar to how the death card is like people pull that card all the time. And when you're still in that kind of like fearful place of outsourcing your power, it's like, holy shit, am I about to die? I just pulled the death card. But the death card is literally about like something leaving that doesn't serve you, especially that it came in this way of like a negative entity around you. I think that's what she said. Like, that is something very intimate that you've been carrying with you or allowing to come with you. And I'm just so excited to see how that dies away in your 40s at some time.
Yeah, it's kind of exciting.
Yeah, very. I feel excited by it as a Scorpio 8th house stellium. I'm like, yes, death, yes. But yeah, I think the dream stuff is so fascinating. Maybe we'll have to do a part 2 with Dr. Michael Lennox again because it's just so interesting, and I feel like from listening to his podcast, Conscious Embodiment, he does a dream interpretation at the end of every episode, and I've learned so much from just listening to that and then tuning into dreams intuitively, and there's such a connection between intuitive information and our dream information, like I was saying, and the more you develop and open your channel, the more vivid your dreams are, and the more you can recall your dreams because that muscle that brings subconscious psyche information into our conscious awareness is strengthened the more you do intuitive development. So it's all just so powerful. And I love the idea that we can't lie to ourselves in our dreams. So it's just like a portal for deep truth. And I can't tell you how many times I've had grief dreams that just like wake me up sobbing. And it's what I've been pushing down and avoiding while I'm awake. And like lately, I've been having a lot of dreams where I'm fighting with my mom. And like my mom and I had a bit of like a tough period before she passed. And it's like, I don't want to think about that. I just want to enshrine her. I don't want to face that emotion or that feeling. And my subconscious is like, no, you can't have a happy visitation dream from her until you face this anger and this like disappointment and frustration that you never fully processed. So our dreams are just so powerful and they know exactly what we need to look at. And like going back to that code word, and I'm so sorry to like beat a dead horse, but I just have to make one last point about this. Imagine going into the dream world and being like, if this is real and I'm really led, I only want to dream of a silver unicorn and show me a silver unicorn. Instead of just being like, I'm going to open and trust that, like, the message that will resonate with me and make sense to me on a certain level or have valuable information will come through. So I think these spirit psyche led places, instead of trying to control it and force it and order it and demand it and shape it, let it inform how we can show up more powerfully and how what we need to know and trust the flow of that instead of trying to shape or funnel the flow of that.
Yeah, that's such a great example. Maybe something more magical and helpful is wanting to come through. And if we can open ourselves to what needs to come through, I think that's where the magic really lies.
Absolutely. So, thank you guys so much for these amazing questions. And let's transition to sitting with spirit. Before we get into sitting with spirit today, I'm so excited that I just had my angel reading giveaway with Alexa, who won, what is it, Claire? The third angel reading giveaway?
Yeah, I think it was the third.
Yeah, so that was so beautiful and so special. And I just love connecting with this community in this way. It's always so powerful. And she was so sweet and sent in a testimonial about her experience. So why don't we read that?
Alexa, thank you so much for sending this in. It means so much. Hi, I received an Angels and Ancestors reading from Taylor, and it did not disappoint. It's evident she is very gifted. Taylor holds a safe, comfortable container for her clients during the reading process. The angel part of my reading was very insightful, helped me gain clarity, and opened my awareness to things I hadn't even considered but made perfect sense. The mediumship part of my reading was truly incredible. Taylor connected with my dad and was so spot on in describing him in the exact ways my family and I speak of him. This further validated my knowing that there is more to our journey than our life on earth and gave me peace. I highly recommend booking a reading with her. Thank you so much, Taylor. I'm so grateful, Alexa.
Thank you so much, Alexa. It was such an honor to get to bring through your dad and to read for you. And I just think mediumship is so special because sometimes the angel messages take more time to like really land and understand. Whereas mediumship, it's like, yeah, either he was a hockey player or he wasn't. It's like you can validate that like here and now. So I love the blend and the fusion. And I'm just so grateful to be trusted in this space. And so our next Angels and Ancestors reading giveaway will happen when we hit 288 5-star reviews on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We're already in the 300s in Spotify, so we've already surpassed that. So, Apple Podcasts, if you are listening, please, 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 your 5-star reviews and ratings mean the world to us. You can send a screenshot of them to contact at Magic Hour Pod. Rating and reviewing on Spotify and Apple Podcasts is one entry each in the giveaway. Subscribing on YouTube is an entry, and sharing us on your Instagram story and tagging us is an entry as well. Send screenshots of all of those things to contact at magichourpod.com, and you might just win a reading with me. So they have been super special, and I can't wait to see who the universe, our angels, and our guides connect me with next. I also wanted to take this opportunity to share Scorpio season Earth Angel Club with you guys. So this will be happening Wednesday, September 29th at 6 p.m. Pacific time. But of course, the replay is available if you can't make it live. The theme this month is stepping into our most powerful versions of self with Archangel Zadkiel. And for those who don't know what Earth Angel Club is, it's a mix of an astrology reading for the zodiac season ahead, an energy/angel reading for the group, a guided meditation, which the theme is being your most powerful self, and then some ritual suggestions for the season. It's super beautiful. One of the best perks of it is that you can skip the wait list and sit with me sooner for any reading type. And code EARLY gives $11 off until Monday, October 27th at midnight Pacific time. I can't wait to connect with you guys there for booking a reading, for joining Earth Angel Club, for anything. Go to angelsandamethyst.com and you can find all the information there. I can't wait to connect with you. Welcome back to Sitting with Spirit, the part of the podcast where we sit with our angels, our guides, our loved ones in the spirit world, give the messages for the collective. As always, take what resonates, leave the rest. And if you know somebody who could benefit from the message, please send it their way. So, as I was starting to feel into the energy whenever you're hearing this episode, the feeling that I get is that we're in a major up level moment, and it's sort of up leveling through discomfort or getting out of an uncomfortable comfort zone or being stretched a little bit. And I feel like the purpose of this is to create a life that feels more authentic to who we are now versus the circumstances that we built based off of outdated stories that might have met our needs back then, but don't meet our needs now. And there's a few different messages around this. The first thing that came through was a message around not waiting for permission to have confidence. And where are we waiting for external markers of success to signal deservingness within us? And there's this feeling of stepping into a more powerful, confident, worthy person from giving ourselves that permission, not waiting for anyone else outside of ourselves, certain status or symbol or recognition or follower count, like even faking it till you make it a little bit, just coming into that sense of like, what does worthiness look like if I gave myself permission here and now to trust myself, to be that girl and to step into that, because that feels like a really big part of the energy of this up level right now is around authenticity and confidence and stepping away from this like proving yourself energy, like stepping away from proving to your ego that you're worthy as a way that you build your life, and the pendulum wanting to shift to how good can it feel. So instead of like stories and markers of recognition, it's like, how good can I make life feel? How joyful can I be? How much can I meet the needs of what my heart is asking for? And so it feels like we're planting new seeds from a heart led place versus an ego led place that's trying to prove ourselves to other people or ourselves. And with that being said, it kind of falls into what the nodes are doing right now with the South Node in Virgo, all about thinking, planning, strategizing, logic, and reason and rationality. And the pendulum is swinging to dreaming, feeling, intuiting, and connecting to higher spiritual consciousness, which is Pisces. It's like this creative spiritual force. And I feel like right now, so much is shifting from thinking to feeling. And we've gotten so burnt out in this way of like overthinking, second guessing, questioning everything, being in our head, trying to hold on to outcomes. And I feel like that toolbox and where we're being asked to go right now is this really shifting to like, what is my real truth? What is the deeper feeling underneath this story I'm telling myself? Where am I playing judge and jury in my head over what my heart knows to be true? And a message that I get is almost this like tough love feeling from our angels that's like, you know what you need to do. And there's just this sense of like, we're all so much more tapped in than we give ourselves credit for. And the more we try to like run from our knowing or avoid our knowing or logic our way out of our knowing or make a case for something outside of our knowing, I almost get this feeling from our angels right now where it's like, no, like I'm not going to give you any more information at this moment because you know deep down what you need. And there's almost like this way that there's sort of this inner warrior initiation. And it feels like there's a little bit of tough love from our angels, keyword love, not tough, in that they're not letting us like run to them or outsource our power to them or continue in a needy way with them. There's something about them standing really firm in the last message that they gave or the last knowing that you've gotten and be like, no, you know the assignment. And so, with that being said, I saw dragon as an animal guide. I saw dragon and snake, and snake is so tied to like a shedding of the snake skin, evolution, and releasing old identities and story of self. And then dragon is almost like the higher octave of that, where it's like fire and power and inner warrior activation. And I was just feeling like we're all being activated. Like this isn't new. We've been sort of pushed and we have been activated, but I feel a deeper layer of activation coming up now. I feel that dragon, like kind of, it's been awakened, but now it's like roar. And I feel this like deep sense of once it's awoken to this level, it can never go back to sleep. And so our inner dragon, our inner warrior, our inner like primal fiery force is speaking to us about what it needs and how we can be more powerful. And the more we try to dismiss it or debate it or run from it, then the more lost or stuck we'll feel when in reality we know what we need to do, like I said. So, all of this is really pushing us towards more authenticity so that we're not running around in the same circles that feel like they're getting us nowhere. And it's just really like this gauntlet feeling of initiation and higher power. And so I pulled a card for the week and I pulled the Ace of Pentacles, which is the card of prosperity, property, and new beginnings. And it's all about like planting new seeds. And the message that I got as I was pulling this card is, where can we plant more aligned seeds based off of our heart's truth instead of the ego story we've attached to try to get approval, love, recognition, etc., etc.? How can we plant seeds based off of feeling more joy, authenticity, power, play, community, connection, like all of these things that feel good to our heart? Because the thing is, when we're planting seeds based off of like the vibration of trying to prove something or an ego story crafting itself out of protection, we get that thing and it doesn't make us happy. Or we get that thing and then the yardstick just moves to the next thing. And it's this constant searching. When, as cliche as it is, like that information really exists all in our heart. And that's where we feel like there's almost this trial by fire isn't exactly right, but there's almost this rebirth through fire and acknowledging like the anger, the warrior, the power. Like there's something very fiery about that. And I also feel like there's ways that themes of not only having our own back is coming through, like no matter what, showing ourselves that we have our own back, but also having each other's backs and like this collective energy of our warriors being activated. And once they're awakened, they can't go back to sleep. So it just feels like there's a whole lot of like initiation into power. And our angels are stretching us into deeper timelines of joy, but in ways that we can't immediately see or understand, that are requiring a lot of faith and feeling and surrender. And I know surrender is such an annoying word to hear, but surrender is not passive. Surrender is active. It means flowing, taking aligned action steps with where the energy wants to go instead of what your plan is for the energy. And so, as I was tuning into the mediumship today, a young Indian man came through and he made me feel like he passed like in his 20s or 30s and that he was from like a small fishing village. And he came in with a really simple and sweet message. And I don't feel like he would be anybody that someone in the community would recognize. He felt more like a spirit guide, and I truly feel like this man found enlightenment when he was here. And his message was all about simple pleasures will always be greater than ego stories. And it kind of went in alignment with a lot of the other messages that were coming through in the angel portion, is that humanity has lost its way. Like we are in a society that is so ripe to be a playground for the ego. And the ego is constantly telling us stories about, I'll be happy when, I'll give myself permission to be confident when, I'll give myself permission to feel worthy when. And then our life becomes the summation of those chases instead of the summation of feeling safe enough to enjoy the simple pleasures of being here and now in this present moment in a physical body. And the feeling that I get is this guide is just saying like truth and love are simple. And he had this simple life where all of his needs were met and he was around his family and community and he was truly happy. Like he never felt the need to like seek outside of that or prove something to anyone. He genuinely was just content with exactly what he had here and now. And I think that if we lean into that energy, it doesn't mean that we can't even have like quote unquote big achievements in our life. But if we do things that we genuinely love and stay connected to that, it doesn't mean there won't be hard moments, of course. But when we stay in that, then our life becomes the summation of those choices instead of sort of sacrificing time and living for potential and waiting for permission and outsourcing our power. And then we feel so stuck and lost. And I've never connected with somebody on the other side who's like, yeah, I wish I would have like grinded a little harder for that next raise. They're always saying like, I wish I would have just enjoyed the moment more. I wish I would have opened up about what was bothering me. I wish I wouldn't have taken things so seriously. And so I feel like this spirit person is saying when you listen to what your heart is asking for, what you actually need is much less. And when you don't, sort of like that work hard, play hard trap, when you're like burned out and doing all of these things and pushing yourself past what feels authentic to you, then it's like our needs are so much higher because we're trying to fill that hole from that's coming from not listening to our heart. And so, where can we come back to simple joy? Where can we remember that like simplicity and simple joys are our birthright. And when we judge them to not be enough, we're robbing ourselves on a deep level of like fulfillment. And I think that there's also layers of like ancestral healing and cycle breaking and nervous system work and epigenetics to even feel safe in spaciousness and to feel safe in ease and to rewire to a level where we can actually be present with the simple pleasures. But it kind of goes back to this sentiment that I've heard before of like, the more I healed, the more I tried to like boss my way to the sun. Like the more I healed, the more I was just happy with exactly where I am and what I have. And that's the sentiment that this beautiful man in the spirit world is sharing today. It's like, where can you come back to exactly where you are right now? And I saw this video of this woman and she was in this contraption, like her legs weren't working, and she got put in this contraption and she could walk again. And it was so uncertain and unsteady, and she was like crying and so grateful that she can walk. And that's just a perfect example of we have so much. And when we're constantly fooled and robbed by the rat race stories of when we'll be worthy, it robs us of just the miracle of being alive here and now. And I know it sounds really cliche, but if we can come back to just embodying our physical senses and like the good tastes, the smells, the conversation, the love, the hugs, like those simple pleasures are truly what makes all of these spirits want to come to earth on a deep level. It's like, yes, the soul growth and the expansion and learning a lot through the lessons, but also just the miracle of being alive right here, right now, and not taking that for granted. Claire, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, it's such a beautiful reminder. And it's so easy, I think, to get caught up in all the bigger things that feel like they will provide the happiness. And not to say that, sometimes those things don't provide happiness, but something I really liked in The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. I think it's in The Artist's Way or maybe in her book Blessings, but she talks about this exercise about happiness touchstones and how those things can literally be like the light filtering through the trees outside your window, or the way an iced coffee tastes, or, the feeling of a hot shower, and how those like pleasures are all around us. And sometimes we're so quick to skip over them and dismiss them because we think there's like some idea of happiness to get to. But feels like what you were kind of talking about. And sometimes when I need to anchor back into those, I'll look back at a list I made of them, or just like explore the moment I'm in and notice like how beautiful my plants are hanging in this room and how wonderful it is to chat with you. There's so much joy and pleasure all around us. And it kind of just takes us to reframe and notice for it to give us its pleasure.
Yeah. Instead of treasure hunters, let's be pleasure hunters.
I love that.
Yeah, I just think that like where we're being led to right now is a reevaluation of the stories that we're telling ourselves about worthiness, success, alignment, our goals, and just really asking like, is this really authentic to me and what I truly want? Or is this something that I feel will meet a need or will get me validation or will give me permission to feel worthy? And how can we take that Ace of Pentacles? Pentacles is the suit of like money, work ethic, career, working. And where can we start to plant little seeds and new action steps, especially within money, finances, and career, because this is really a career card, and make the pendulum swing towards designing a life that our heart is really asking for.
Yeah, I just think that's such an exciting way to think about our career and, the life we're trying to create for ourselves. I think we can get so caught up in what it should look like, but really centering into what would really fulfill us. And I think that can look so many different ways. Like for me, I can focus so much on like, I want to book a movie and that's going to be happiness, but I can still be creative without that, because the whole point is to be creative. And so I think, in all our different ways and how that shows up for all of us, it's just a good reminder of like, you're not chasing the thing, you're chasing the way the thing you think will make you feel. And how can you create that feeling for you right here and right now with the tools and the opportunities you currently have?
Yeah. And I think for a lot of us too, in a capitalistic society, we over identify with career. And I was just in a session earlier where this woman was like, yeah, my parents were always so proud of me because I was the most successful of my siblings. And I hit so many career goals and milestones. And like that became her marker of worthiness and also her identity and how she saw herself and the story that she crafted about who she was, why she mattered, why she was powerful. And then in our session, she was nearing a time for like retirement. And we really had to talk about that. Like, okay, for so long, you pushed through this story that you assigned to yourself of like what made you you. And now in this chapter, you actually get to explore what makes you you in a way that you never gave yourself permission to before. So I think we can really lean into these external things as markers of worthiness and stories of self. And that's exactly what the message is about today, too, of like, how can we plant seeds that are more rooted in curiosity, exploration of authenticity, and giving our heart what it asks for? Because I think we're always in this like social media comparison portal. And I think that's messed up our brains a little bit and put us even more into this egoic playground. And we're just losing the plot. Like people feel more disconnected and unsatisfied than like ever before. And I think it's like a rebellious act to come back to really simple pleasures being enough.
Yeah, I love that. It's like with my creativity, I really love dance for me in that because dance is a creative outlet I don't pursue as a career because I'm too old. But it's like such a beautiful freedom in that where it's like it's just for me. It's just because I love it. It's not to like be successful. The success is the doing of it.
I completely agree. So I hope these messages are helpful for you this week or whenever you're tuning in. And we will see you next time. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Magic Hour podcast. We are so happy you're here. I absolutely love to connect with you all on Instagram at angels_and_amethyst. I love to get your thoughts on each episode, and I get so excited to get your emails to contact@magichourpod.com. Make sure you're subscribing to Magic Hour so you never miss a new episode in your inbox. We have so many amazing guests right around the corner as always. Please make sure to send your 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify to contact@magichourpod.com, and we'll enter you into an angel reading giveaway with me, which is just my favorite thing to get to connect with the hummingbird community in that way. You get a bonus entry if you also send a screenshot of your YouTube subscription and also a screenshot of sharing us on your story and tagging us at Magic Hour Podcast on Instagram. The next giveaway will happen when we hit 288 5-star reviews on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We so appreciate you sharing the podcast with other magical people, and it really helps us keep this project alive. To learn more about me, my work, to book a reading with me, to take a workshop, please visit angelsandamethyst.com. And remember, you are magic.